Hey everyone, welcome to this short video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a time clock using Google Apps Script, where you can hit a button and clock in and clock out, and it'll put a time in a Google Sheet. So all you need to do this is a free Gmail account will be enough, and that's it. So this is going to be a quick video here. The backstory is that when I first got started with Google Apps Script and making automations, this was an exact thing that I was trying to duplicate and create. So this sort of thing is this was my very first app script project. So, and it kicked my butt. So anyways, I had watched a video of somebody showing how to do this sort of thing too. I just followed the instructions and implemented it, and I was pretty blown away. So I want to do that now. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. This is pretty exciting, but I want to do the same thing, same type of video, and kind of show like the modern approach to it. Basically, we're going to be writing 5 lines of code. So let's get started. All right, in your Google Drive, go to New Google Sheets. This will create a brand new Google Sheet. What we're going to do is we're going to dedicate a space here to just like keep track of our clock in and clock out time, and then a way to show how much time has elapsed between our clock in and our clock out for that row. The header row, let's call this clock in time, clock out time. We'll say total time here. Okay, and then right here, we're going to create a button. So really easy to do that. Go to Insert, Drawing. In here, we have a little editor where we can craft a drawing image to insert into the sheet as like an overlaid image over the cells. So the way I do this is I click Shapes. I like to create the buttons that have this kind of like rounded edge here. I'm going to make it sort of rectangular. And then I'm going to put a text box over it, and we're just going to call this punch. Okay, and so I don't like how that looks. So just a couple easy things to do here. I'm going to center it horizontally and vertically, and then I'm going to grab the text element here and then center it so it's all centered up. And then let's do this. Let's increase the size so it fills out that button a little bit better. That's fine. And then let's change, I want to change the color of the actual button. So what I did there is I highlighted the text element and I hit tab, and it brought me to the next element in the lineup. So let's change the color to green, and let's get rid of, see this border around it? Actually I like that. Okay. Save and close. What this will do is it inserts it into our sheet here. What we can do is right click, and then we can drag it around and put it anywhere we want. I'm going to put it right here for now. Sounds good. Shrink it just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to drag this right here down to freeze this so that no matter how far we scroll, we are always seeing the headers. This does some wonky things with the button. So what I'm going to do now is increase the size of, this first initial row so that the button is included in that row. So now when we scroll, we always got the button. Okay, that's the setup for this. Let's keep going though. Center these. Let's increase the size to like 14. And now we're running into sizing issues. Fun fact, if you click this top left little box, it'll select everything. Then you can go over to like column A and double click. You see where my cursor is in this like modify the width cursor. You just double click, and what it'll do is, since it has every column selected, it will auto resize the column. Boom. Okay. And then now we're ready to go. Here's the implementation. I'm going to adjust that. Okay. The implementation is, in the most simple way to approach this is I want to be able to select a cell, click the button. It will put in all of the information on like the right now date time. So I want to see like what date it is. So 8/19/2024, and then I want a space, and then I want to be able to see what the time is. So 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here's something, because that's the time zone I'm in. Here's one thing to have on your radar. Go to File, go down to Settings. Here we can see the time zone for the spreadsheet. The time zone for the spreadsheet opts to what the owner's time zone is. I just created the spreadsheet, so I'm the owner of the spreadsheet. And so it defaults to whatever my time zone is, okay? So if you're having some weird like date stuff going on, check the time zone and make sure that that's matching up, and you can change it if it's not matching up. Okay, now we're ready for the code. How we get to the app script code is we go to extensions, app script. And here we're going to see the app script editor. It's loading because it's the first time that it's loaded up. So like if I were to exit out of the editor and then go to extensions again, we'll see that it didn't have to go through that initialization process. It already created it. So the first time that you go to extensions app script, it will create that file for you, create that app script file, which is a file just like any other file in your Google Drive with some small exceptions. I'm not going to get into that, but here we're able to finally start coding. So let's, it gives us a function, and the name of the function, and then the parentheses is where the arguments go for the function to use inside of itself. And then we have an opening curly bracket and a closing curly bracket. And inside of these curly brackets, that's where the machine executes line by line the actions that you want it to execute. So all we got to do is tell it what to do. So the first thing I want to do is I don't want this function to be called my function. I want it to be called something more descriptive and describe what it's doing. So this function name, let's call it set punch time. There we go. Okay. And then inside of here, a lot of times when you make a function, you will need arguments. They're called arguments to go inside of the parentheses there for the function to use what it's given. We're not needing to give it anything. We're going to have all the information we need, just totally wrapped up in all we need is the current date and the sheet, and the range that's selected. So we don't need anything from the outside. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm yammering on here. So what we got to do is we got to grab the date of like this right now. So we're envisioning when this goes, when it runs. At that time, we need the right now date. So the way we do that is let's declare a variable. You do that with const. See how it highlights blue means that the editor is telling you I recognize what that means, and to me it means a certain thing, and I can't change what it means. The program, the JavaScript is interpreting that in a very specific way. That's why it's blue, and so we don't get mixed up. Everything else will be black text, most everything. Okay, so const, let's say now time. That's our variable name. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to say equals. So now time is what? The machine is ready to get some instructions on what it is that now time is. I just made up now time. It could be literally, almost literally any name. Okay, that's our ridiculous variable. If we wanted to go with that, the machine wouldn't care. Let's define what the right now time is. We do that by getting a date object, which we type new space capital D date, one last thing, open close parentheses, and then semicolon to kind of tell the machine that we're done with that line. This is not absolutely necessary for this line of code. Other lines of code, it is crucial. All right, so let's clean up this variable name. Okay, now time. The next line is we need to get what cell we have highlighted. Okay, so right here, the cell I have highlighted is D10. Right here, it's A2. Right here, it's B5. Okay, in spreadsheet land, The cell that is highlight like a cell, that is a range. What's inside of the cell, as if it's a Tupperware container, what's inside of it, that is a value. Okay, so we need to grab what is the range, and then it's really easy to tell the machine to go, this is the range. What I want you to do to that range is put a value inside of it. Really easy. I'll show you exactly how it's done. Okay, so let's grab the active range that the user has highlighted. And how we do that is this. We go to capital S spreadsheet. Oh boy, I've lost my mind. Okay, we need to define what this variable name is. Wow. Okay, so let's just call it range. No, let's call it active range. That's a little bit more specific. Okay, then we do spreadsheet app, and what's amazing about AppScript is that it has amazing documentation built into the editor here. So we hit enter because we can see that there's something here that is trying to autofill, autocomplete for us. So hitting enter will bring up whatever that thing is that it's intending to autofill for us. So spreadsheet app, and then we hit dot. Dot will then show us other options that we have for when we call the spreadsheet app API. Okay, and the next thing that we want to do, there's a lot of options here. What we want is an option buried in here, and that option is we want to get active range. Really, really easy. And then we're going to just close it out because that's what our range is. Now that we know later on in the code, when we go to active range, we know that it is a range. So I'm going to do enter, enter, Control S to save. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to say, okay, you know that active range that we set up, the one that, whatever the user has selected, we want to put inside of that cell that's active the value of now time. Let's do it. Active range, set value, done. Okay, so 6 lines of code technically with an empty one here to delineate where our variables are versus where our actions are, which I like to do. So now we're ready to test it. One quick thing though, when you hit this button right here, this is going to run the function that you have selected. We only have one function, so it's our function that's selected. If we had another function, hit save, it would also show up on our list. Okay, so when we go to run this function, see here we have spreadsheet app. Spreadsheet app is a permissions bound API, which means that you have to say, yes, it's okay to use it in order to use it. Even if you're the one who owns the sheet and made the code and physically typed out the code, you know exactly what it does. It's a level of safety with Google and kind of the thing that makes what I like about Google. But when you run a function for the first time with a built-in app that hasn't been used before, hasn't been permitted before, that's just how it goes. You have to permit. Okay, you have to authorize. So if I were to go here, go to A2, what I want to see happen is I want to see when I run punch time, it will go in. This is one step before we add the function to this button. So let's run it. It'll ask us to authorize the permissions. Click on review permissions. Click on the account that is permitting them, and then click allow. And then it ran the function. Let's see what it did. Perfect. Okay, it added the display value is 8/19/2024. But when we click on it, we can see that the actual value does list the actual time that this was clicked. That's cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change the display. But before we do that, let's add our function to the button. Here's how we do it. We grab just the name reference of the function that we made. We then go back to our button, right click, hit the 3 dots, assign script, and paste. And hit OK. We do not want the parentheses. It will get confused. We just want the name reference. Click OK. Now, if we go here, we hit punch, it will punch, punch. There you go. And so now what we need to do is we need to put in the elapsed time, the total time for that row, okay? And we also need to format it so that it looks right. So, this doesn't help, right? Because it's just the date, and I don't know what time inside of that date, was the clock in and the clock out. One more thing, I'm just going to, since this is bugging me, I'm gonna hit Control Shift and right arrow to highlight all the columns to the right and delete them. Goodbye. I'm also going to do that below row 20. So Control Shift down, highlight all those, delete those. So now it's much more clean. Cool. So now let's format any of these punches. Let's format them the right way. So let's go to this right here, the formatter, and we'll go down to date, time. Yeah, that works. And then once again, I'm just going to resize. Okay, looks like that's okay. Let's make it a little bigger. Okay. So resize that, and you know what? I don't like that. Let's change that to just the time. Okay, because the date is assumed that it's actually not going to matter too much. Okay, so 1:09 p.m. and then 1:10 p.m. was the difference between the clock in and the clock out. Now, we need a formula here to give us the total elapsed time between the clock in and the clock out date for that row. So let's do that equal sign, and we'll do this minus this. And then we get a date, or sorry, a time, which is troublesome because it doesn't tell us what we need to know. So we need to change the format here. So if we go to custom date and time, and we go here and we hit the drop downs and we go to elapsed hours, and then a physical string colon, and then we go to elapsed minutes, that's going to get us where we need. And I like the leading 0 with that. So apply, and now you can see that. Yeah, just shy of 1 minute. So let's do this. Let's change this not to, yeah, we'll do that. And we should see 1 hour here. Love it. Okay, so let's drag this formula down so it's got all of them. My face, punch, and we'll change the time on this, and punch. Beautiful. Okay, so that's the basics here on how to create a punch button for a clock in and clock out. Total time, I did some extra little things here, but that's the basics. So if you want to know more about this stuff, or if you have a project where you feel like you could use some custom app scripting, app script is super powerful. We just use 5 lines of code and some formatting, and we have a very custom timesheet. So if you want to learn more about this, if you want maybe me to do another video to elaborate on this timesheet and what else we could do, just hit me up, let me know. I'm gonna say goodbye now and get on to the other work that I have to do.